Time now for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. And Al, after the heat earlier this month, this past week has been quite a change. How does everything look as we close out July?
Well, Troy, you are correct. We did see that heat break down as we moved through the weekend as that cold front came through. We did see widespread precipitation across much of the southern one-third of the state. The heaviest totals that we've seen in the 1 to 3 inch range, with a few isolated totals between 3 and 4 inches occurred across most of southwestern Nebraska, central Nebraska, and eastern Nebraska, pretty much east central Nebraska. If you took a line from the northern half of the Panhandle and drew it straight eastward over to the eastern border of Nebraska and points to the north of there, really missed out on much of this heavier precipitation. We see most totals in the trace amounts to about a 1/4 inch, with just about 10% of the stations receiving more than a 1/4 inch of precipitation that reported from this system. More importantly, as we go forward, of course, we've seen some dry areas developing into the area just to the north of Omaha that needed to see some precipitation. And of course, with the heat, there is some concerns about the lack of subsoil moisture, especially late planted crops. So we do have a couple opportunities in this next week and a more respectable precipitation pattern potentially developing as we get into the first full week of August that may assist us. But we still have to get through some of this heat that is building this weekend and of course returning again later in the middle of next week. So as we go to the upper air models, we have a little subtle wave that's moving through. This is going to strengthen as it moves toward the east and start to pull a cold front toward the southeast during the overnight hours. So we do have a low pressure system sitting in west central portions of Kansas that will help to lift some moisture up toward the north to intersect with the front. And we'll see some scattered thunderstorm activity starting to develop across northern Nebraska. And during the overnight hours, we should see this wave start to move and slide toward the southeast. Although the models are showing low pressure system in northeastern portions of the state, I think this will be dropped a little bit farther toward the southeast, and we'll actually see the precipitation shield that's showing us tomorrow morning in the northern part of the state actually be much farther toward the south. But regardless, it's going to bring much cooler air to the eastern part of the state, and that will hold for a considerable portion of the first half of the week as we see low pressure in the eastern Wyoming, not having a lot of moisture to feed with, and a little bit of monsoonal flow we see is really feeding into the front that's been moved to the east of us. By Tuesday, we start to see the ridge building back in, and so the warmer conditions are really going to start to materialize in western Nebraska. We'll be well into the 90s. We'll probably still be stuck in the 80s in eastern Nebraska, but we would expect that that will start to occur as we go into Wednesday. One little piece of precipitation shown in southeastern portions of South Dakota may roll down the Mississippi River Valley and impact portions of eastern Nebraska. We do show low pressure on Wednesday developing in western South Dakota and western Kansas, but most of the moisture is directed toward Missouri and Kansas and not so much into Nebraska. And then we see the expansion of this high pressure system such that we'll see some probably 100-degree heat in the southwest part of the state and some higher cattle heat index values as low pressure starts to develop in northern Texas and west central Kansas. That'll help to spin some monsoon moisture around that periphery of that high pressure system impacting northern Nebraska. But as this system deflects toward the southwest, we are most likely going to be looking at the monsoonal moisture feed around the periphery of this high pressure system, and that puts Nebraska in an excellent spot for precipitation, especially considering low pressure will develop in eastern Colorado, and we'll start to get a congealing of thunderstorm activity during Friday that is expected to move across the state and become pretty substantial as we get into eastern Nebraska. If we look at the 8 to 14-day forecast, the models do indicate above normal temperatures reforming from next Thursday to the following Tuesday, but the latest model runs are actually keeping most of the heat just to the south of Nebraska, so we'll see if this verifies. In terms of precipitation, drier conditions to the southern plains, it looks to me like some of this moisture will probably feed over top the ridge and impact Nebraska, so I think we're going to see more above normal, at least in the western half of the state.